Peter,
All right. Hey, Devon, welcome to Team Futurism.
how you gonna do it if you really don't want a pod? What's
We
up,
have a
man?
couple of fun topics. Yeah, we got some fun topics to talk about today.
Yeah.
All mostly pretty light and on the cultural commentary side. And maybe we'll do a little like tech futurism stuff thrown in too. But maybe we should just kind of jump right in. I wanted to talk about the clip of Steve Bannon appearing on Bill Maher last night
Mm-hmm.
and saying that Trump is going to be doing his third term thing. I have not watched this clip. It sounds like you have not either. I think that this would be kind of fun for us to watch together.
Let's hear a
Nice
little Banny
family
boy.
event here, and then we will. Yeah, let's hear it from his own mouth. Um, oh, hold on. We got some
Steve
settings
Bannon
issues
boy.
here, guys. Maybe this will. Here we go.
We got to start coming up with sick, like pithy Trump style nicknames for these fucking clowns.
Oh god, Steve Bannon's just face. It's have you noticed? I've noticed this before we watch the clip. A lot of these
Yeah.
characters who started out as just like total scumbag looking folks, like Steve Bannon and also Curtis Yarvin and a couple of these people on the right, they've like cleaned up massively. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Yeah. Look at him here.
Just in the last couple of years, like look at him here.
He looks like a chinless Jay Leno.
Yeah, almost like he's gonna roll up in like 5 cars, you know?
He's like some weird combination of like pre-fat Elvis, pre-fat still old Elvis, and no chin Jay Leno.
Yeah, that's a good description. Well, let's go ahead. Let's watch this clip.
Let's hear it,
And
Ben. What the fuck do you
we'll
have
do
to
some
say, man?
we'll do some commentary. Can't wait.
Yeah.
That committee was totally rigged, and I didn't mind going
I
to
brought
prison.
a copy tonight. Here it is, the Constitution. Can I read a passage to you? Amendment 22. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And yet you keep talking about Trump's. Maybe you should have this. Here,
Oh, I'll get you to sign it backstage and underline it.
I will.
Look, President Trump didn't bring up running for the third term. Myself and others brought up running for a third term. President Trump is going to run for a third term, and President Trump is going to be elected again on the afternoon of January 20th of 2029. He's going to be president of the United States.
Okay, but the thing I just read in there, it seemed like there was no wriggle room there. It seemed like it was just, 8 or 10 words it said only 2 times.
We have a team of people that are
team.
working. A team.
How can a team do something about that? What? I don't care if the team is 12 trillion people. The words are still the words.
Bill, every day in federal courts, right now in federal courts, there's 120 lawsuits on what President Trump's doing for his Article 2 rights on the unified executive theory. But he's chief executive, he's commander in chief, and he's chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer. There's 100, and they're running to court every day to sue President Trump, all because the interpretation of this. The interpretation of this is open for interpretation.
How should it be open? Could I have it back? How could it? I'm sorry to be. No person. You would agree he's a person. Okay, shall be elected. He was elected to the office. That's the office of the president more than twice. Twice is once and then another time. I don't see what the team is finding.
Okay,
I will disagree.
Wow. Legend. Bill. Every time the first like 3 seconds I hear his voice, I'm like, this smug, and I'm like, he's so funny though.
His timing on his show honestly is very good. It's very good.
It's incredible.
But what do you think about this? Like, I mean, it is by definition an anti-American position. It's like, forget about like constitutional originalism, which like conservatives, have always just like been married to as a philosophy. This is not only not that, it's the opposite of that. It's zero respect for the Constitution, right? Like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so funny because the first thing that jumps to my mind is like, yeah, obviously this is not constitutional, and so it probably will be struck down by some court somewhere. However, the thing that is the most salient to me is like he's already the oldest president of all time. I don't. We've already had this whole like debate about geriatric politicians. Like, I just don't see like him going for another term and like 4 more years of being the oldest president of all time. I think that is like people are going to be able to pin him to the wall on that. And I'd be surprised if he rides out the rest of this presidency without a little bit of cognitive decline. This guy's old as dust, man.
All of that is like absolutely pertinent, and you're totally right to zero in on that. But like, I mean, for me, I'm just completely hung up on the
the,
idea that, I mean, like Bill Maher said, there's zero wiggle room here. And what
yeah,
that team of people, like Steve Bannon didn't exactly say this, but he kind of said it.
yeah,
That team of people, what they're doing is they are preparing for what to do when courts strike it down. The
right,
next step of how like to ignore that and then
right,
steamroll ahead and then just make it the case that he just happens to be, no matter what anybody what any other authority says, he that team is making it so that that will work out, whether it's like
yeah,
through, I don't know, the military or who knows what they're trying to like put together. But another thing that this says to me is that like if they're willing to just throw this away as a
what
meaningful
else?
part of the Constitution, that just shows that they have zero respect for the whole entire document. Like this is just so
Right.
foundational. This means that there's literally not any other, set of words in there that they would not be willing to throw out in the name of, their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. That's maybe even the most disturbing part of this.
I think, yeah, I mean, there's precedent, right? Like FDR, four terms FDR, right? uh Something like that, and then I think we got one
Mhm.
more that snuck a third. Uh but um uh but absurd. The thing that I guess that worries me about it is that like, wartime president really has the ability to do a lot. And
Mhm.
I do really pray that we don't get drawn into another kinetic conflict with some country somewhere else. But
Mhm.
that's the only falling short of that. I just don't see anybody going for it other than like these idiots. And I think also that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party will probably work pretty hard over the next 4 years to come up with candidates that are serviceable, which has not been the case for the last couple election cycles. Like we just haven't had really serviceable alternatives in any meaningful way. But yeah, I mean, Jesus, I mean, what else can you say about the Constitution? You can't do it, buddy. You're not him. You know what I mean? You're not FDR. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like, uh, yeah, I think it's patently absurd. I think it's absolutely patently absurd. I think it's un-American. I think it's absurd. I think it's treasonous. I think that all of this kind of philosophical debate around whether the Constitution is like sturdy enough to like, what are we even talking about? Like, this is like the
I
guiding
know.
this is
Exactly
the
right.
guiding light
Yeah.
of Western civilization. This is the most intelligently constructed document in human history. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, come on, guys. Like, we're not gonna go traipsing on the Constitution for this fucking clown, man. Nobody's gonna
Yeah,
do that.
I have one more just commentary here, and this is my liberal brain speaking, I'm sure. But Republicans are just like so lame in that they're not even thinking about how they can get someone better than this. I mean, like, sure, Democrats liked Obama, but like,
Yeah.
I never in my life was like, oh, we could never do better than Obama, or there's not going to
Yeah.
be someone 10 years younger than him, that could, be rival his excellence, but then like surpass it. How
He
come
is.
they're so just like hung up on this one guy? Like it's so like
I think
lame
I
fundamentally.
actually did have a moment with Trump this week where I was like, I laughed involuntarily pretty hard.
Mhm.
And it was his little tariffs speech where he was like, they're calling me up. they're kissing my ass. They're kissing my ass trying to get me to make a deal. And I think, I mean, I've been saying this for, I don't know, 10 years now, that like the reason why Trump is so beloved, it is literally just the way he talks. He's
It
just
is. Yeah,
so
exactly.
he's George Bush Jr. on steroids 2.0, right? Like he's like, you remember the Bush Jr. affect where he was like, I'm just the guy from Texas and like we're gonna kick some ass over there. And it was like one little grain of sand in Trump's kind of like giant ass. You know what I mean? Like he is so loose and he's been in the spotlight for so long. He's, you know, more difficult to flap this time around for some reason, which I hate to say it, gives him a little bit more cool points. And I think that people have fetishized him in a way because he is an anti-politician politician. Like he's not in keeping rhetorically with any politician we've ever had ever. And I think people just really love that about him. I don't know.
You're totally right. At some level, I get it, even though it is like ultra pathetic. But I wasn't gonna play this, but there's another clip that just like I was just cracking up about because it explains Trump so thoroughly. Did you happen to catch Destiny talking to George Santos on his podcast?
No. Oh,
You
this
remember
sounds
George
good though.
Santos, right?
Yeah,
Do you remember George
we
Santos?
all remember George Santos.
He
Yeah.
has a podcast that's like weirdly enjoyable, and I mean he's so like entertaining to watch. I mean, obviously that's like why he was elected in general. Let me play this clip. I'm just gonna queue it up and play it.
Yeah.
Then maybe I'll get your thoughts here. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right
I mean,
screen.
it makes sense that Santos would be more serviceable media figure than politician. I mean, that was kind of his whole affect in the first place, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely. Oh, dude, it makes so much sense. It's kind of phenomenal. But yeah, okay, I just pulled this up.
how
Here's
hilarious
George
will it be
Santos.
if people are getting into politics as like a low barrier to entry social clout, so that they can then pivot to media.
Oh, that I actually already know that is a thing. I know some people who have sort of kind of done that. Maybe even like Andrew Yang at some level, or a better example is uh um oh man, I'm blanking on his name. Who's the Indian gentleman who got rich
Ramaswamy.
selling Ramaswamy? Yeah, Ramaswamy
Ramaswamy.
effectively was that. I always thought.
Right. Right.
Okay, let me play this clip. Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on it.
Hit me.
Trump isn't like a political person. He's a joker as well. I mean, what do you mean?
He's the president of the United States.
He's literally, if you listen to Donald Trump, Donald Trump has a 40-word vocabulary that he uses in every single interview.
What's two of his favorite words?
Give us a Trump sentence then, based on your own assessment of his vocabulary.
Well, ask me a complicated foreign policy question.
Destiny, what will you do to resolve
President
the
Trump.
trading deficit between the United States and the United Kingdom?
Okay, I can't do his accent, but the United Kingdom has treated us so horribly. Biden was a sucker. They've taken advantage of us. We're being treated horribly by them, and I'm going to talk to them, and we're going to have the best deal. It's going to be so much for the United States. I've never seen so much as there's going to be for the United States. Illegal immigrants. Basically be.
Wow.
Right? I think that nails it. That just like absolutely nails Trump,
Well, it kind of gets to it in a weird way. It digs down to like an almost subtextual point in all of this, which is that like for whatever reason, the political class has been convinced for the last like I don't know how many generations that normal people give a fuck about policy, and it's like, dude, no normal person is getting in the weeds on policy. Like he's like the Trump like ability to
That is true until people start coming for Social Security and a couple of things like that. Then we're gonna be changing that narrative. I think sometimes these big narratives that are true for so long, like that, they become untrue when just like the wrong thing breaks. And I feel like Trump is going to break one of those things. You know, maybe even like the tariffs at some level will also be one of those things that you're not supposed to break and he breaks it, you know? I want to get away from Trump. We're going to do a hard pivot. we got other fish to fry at this podcast. Another like just, you know, culturally relevant moment this week. I'm sure you saw this. I think you mentioned that you saw the whole thing. I did as well. I listened to it. I didn't watch it.
I'm back listening to Rogan again, man. I'm back on the tit.
Honestly, so this was Dave Smith and Douglas Murray did a head-to-head on the Rogan podcast. And if he does more of this, doesn't just stick to his echo chamber, but brings people who directly will challenge his worldview. Holy shit, the entertainment value of his podcast will, I think, blossom once again. He could see like a revival, I think, even of his cultural relevance, because he's becoming like more and more just like, oh, I'm like a right-wing guy, you know what I mean? And everyone who's right-wing like listens to him, and nobody left-wing does anymore. He could change that just by making it more of a you know, outsider voices coming on and making it lively again, because it has not felt lively for a very long time. For me, you know what I mean? So yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about this. Maybe we can talk about, there's lots to talk about here. The thing that I want to talk about actually is the meta commentary on whether or how comedians should walk that line. Comedians like Dave Smith should walk the line of being cultural commentators, but then like, oh, I'm also just a comedian. I want to, before we do some commentary, I want to play a clip by Jules Turpak, who's in the tech space. I like her a lot. I follow her stuff. Mm-hmm. And she did the most like concise video about this. And I think that this is worth watching. It's a minute and a half long, I think. Let's watch this, and then we'll jump in with some commentary.
Serve me up.
There's this interesting phenomenon where you'll see a media personality who, vast majority of the time in the past, leaned more casual, entertainment focused, and or just irresponsible with what they share, say a few base things, or, you know, get a new high production set, and all of a sudden, people start to perceive their point of view as more of a rigorous information source versus someone who leans towards being much more of an entertaining information source. Again, just from saying a few base things. Sometimes just one based thing. And then on the other hand, it's kind of the same thing, but it's just like a more unfortunate situation where someone who prides themselves on sharing rigorous information the vast majority of the time, so they're then held to this high standard, this high regard, messes up. And especially because of the negative narrative around the media today, the loudest people on the internet want to write off this individual or write off the institution that this individual works for because they got something wrong, instead of just critiquing that single piece of work does not qualify as journalism. Okay, we've been super bunned up. We're going to get chill here in just a sec. Just a little bit more of standard information to get out of the way. Building off of that, when it comes to rigorous information sources versus entertaining information sources, it's a spectrum. And that spectrum is kind of a circle, because if you're at either end of the spectrum, it is very volatile and easy to be deemed the other. But what I find more interesting is that people on the entertaining end of the spectrum are in kind of a win-win situation, because when they fuck up, they can just be like, hey, I'm some random person that people opted into following, or hey, I'm just a comedian. Meanwhile, people who have worked to be on the rigorous side of the spectrum, if they fuck up, they don't have anything like that to fall back on. And I think this is a big reason why entertainment is taking over the information landscape, is because of that safety net. As Neil Postman pointed out about Aldous Huxley's point of view in Brave New World, he feared the truth could then be drowned in a sea of irrelevance.
Interesting. Wow, it is really fun to hear a young person use the word based as like a vocab word.
Right.
You know, in the same sentence as rigorous, and have like kind of the same affect and tone in using it. I was like, okay, Cool.
I like how she highlighted some of those Elon Musk tweets about how, I mean, the New York Times gets one thing wrong and they publish like multitude stories every single day. They get one little thing wrong and the whole institution, and not only them, but all of legacy media, it's a scam and like we need to like burn it all down. Whereas like Dave Smith or Rogan or any of these other like gazillions of comedians who have their little podcasts and comment continually on world events, they get like 80% of their shit wrong, and it's fine because they're just comedians and it's great. And let's like promote more of them, you know what I mean? And that double standard, I think, is like drastically hurting the discourse broadly. And maybe it's like dumbing down our civilization in a way that is just like honestly kind of easily avoidable if we just held places like the New York Times to account, but also didn't just throw them out at the same, you know. But what's your thought about? I have comments about Dave Smith in particular, but I'm going to get your thoughts before I jump into that.
It's such fertile ground for thought. What's the other guy, the British guy's name again?
Douglas Murray.
Douglas Murray. I actually there's quite a few times where I was like, oh god, you know, he starts off on some like, well, I just think it's funny, you know,
Right.
I just do think it's a bit odd, and I'm just
Right.
like, oh, just say it, man. And
Yeah.
that kind of would drive me nuts. But then he kind of started towing into this the point that you're making, or the point that we're illuminating with this clip, which is like he's like, well, you're not a he's like, I think he like on first principles, when the debate first started, he was kind of like, hey, let's just get this out of the way. This is fucking stupid for me to debate you because you're not an expert. So let's just have that said at the outset, that like, you don't know what you're fucking talking about, and you say as much. And like, I am actually like, this is what I do for a living. And I thought, I felt myself kind of coming back and forth as they were arguing for and against that position, because your ability to expose yourself to information as a layperson is arguably as advanced as most experts, with the exception of certain fields where you need access to scientific journals. And but then Murray made a point where he's like, oh, by the way, have you ever been to Israel? You know, and Dave Smith's like, well, no, but does that mean I can't talk about it? And he was like, well, he's like, I don't want to say it precludes you from talking about it, but if you're gonna spend a lot of time talking about it, you might want to just, I don't know, fucking go there and see what it's like, and see what how the information that you've collected is facing up to the information that you yourself can collect. And I thought that was actually the most salient point in the whole kind of back and forth, where he was like, he was kind of illuminating this like this hierarchical structure of expertism, and he was like, yeah, maybe you're like, you just climbed up to get a breath of air into the expert class. But he's like, dude, I actually like research this stuff. Like, I consider myself like a rigorous information source, and like, I've been there for a lot. Like, I'm there all the time. I was just there. I do
Yeah,
think that.
you're
Yeah,
kind of zeroing in on a point that I want to make, which
yeah.
is that for Dave Smith in particular,
Mm,
I kind of don't care if comedians or entertainers talk about world events and like heavy subjects.
yeah,
Like literally go for it. And like maybe the world actually is better off for that. Dave Smith is weird because he has made the Israel Palestine his pet issue and he
true.
talks about it nonstop.
Incessant.
And and it's like on like all the platforms,
Yeah.
on all the shows.
To the point
Piers
where
Morgan, like,
to the
and
point
it's
where
like,
I know he's a comedian,
yeah,
right? Like,
I literally forget he's a comedian. Yeah,
I literally didn't
100%.
know he was a
Yeah.
comedian. Like, I've
Okay.
definitely heard
Yeah.
him talk about Palestine. I had no idea that he was a comedian.
I only know that because I've heard Joe Rogan say it before, but I've never
Right.
seen his comedy. I've only ever seen his commentary like this.
Funny.
So that's almost the line for me,
Right.
is like, for sure do all the commentary you want. But when you have one issue and your stature as an online presence becomes like you are effectively like, oh, I'm not an expert. It doesn't matter if you say that or not. You are holding yourself out as an expert. And this is one of those like actions speak louder than words situations. Because again, like I'm sure you and I are like alone in this. I bet everybody who listens to him, or 80% of the people who find his content online assume he's some sort of an expert on this. And like that's kind of intentional on his part. And if it's not, he's like an idiot. Maybe that this is one more clip that I will play. We're heavy on the clips today, but it's kind of fun. This is
This is a rerun. This is a rerun episode. This is a montage episode.
I do think like, so I listen to Destiny sometimes. Another commentator who he's not a comedian, but he's like a gamer, so he's like kind of still in that same space. But I kind of appreciate how he will research like streaming as he becomes like kind of a pseudo expert in topics. And so he will read all like the original material along with the Wikipedia and all the New York Times, like the normal stuff, and then also some like original documentation. And you can follow him and see what he reads as he researches the topic. And then it's very transparent about who he is, what he does. And then he's like, he is the debate bro, right? So he goes on shows and just like, he is just regurgitating the cream of the crop of whatever argument is out there. But in no way do you think like, oh, he is an expert. Is like, no, he's a debate bro. And like, that is what he is. So I'm okay with what he does.
Are we like, debate bros?
Are we debate bros? I wouldn't mind being a debate bro. I've actually said this a lot. We need to have some people on here to debate. Okay, well let me play this clip of Destiny because he's going after Rogan on this.
I have one question though. If we are neither comedians nor experts, but have an hour worth of opinions every week, what kind of assholes does that make us, man?
I think that we're just like cultural commentary, but here's the thing about us.
I agree.
We don't just have one pet topic that we talk about nonstop, and we go on the world's biggest platforms to discuss them.
Right.
And also when I do edit this podcast, I cut shit that's just fucking wrong. You know what I mean? I don't leave anything. I mean,
thank you.
I get a little loosey-goosey with it, but if one of us or any guest that I have on says something that's just like, I Google it and I was like, oh, that's wrong, I'll just delete it. You know what I mean? And I have that level of just not wanting to throw or, put more garbage out into the world. I have a sense of that. And Rogan has zero of that. And this is what Destiny calls out here. And I think that this is actually an extraordinarily important point. And maybe after this we can move on to a different topic. I could talk about this all day, but let's hear this out and then we'll maybe move on.
This constant thing of I can't do anything about my audience, or I just talk to who I want to talk to, LOL, like I don't think about it. That's not an acceptable answer when you have the largest podcast audience in the world. Your First Amendment right should be revoked and you should be kicked out of the country. Like, what do you mean you don't even think about it? What do you mean you don't even think about it? That's an outlandish statement to make. You're influencing the minds of so many people and you don't even give thought to who you bring on your show? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, it's just such an unbelievable statement to say that without an ounce of self-reflection or thinking like, man, like, wait, is that really bad? Maybe I should think about like who I bring on my most popular podcast, arguably the most influential podcast in the world. Maybe I should think about that, but
I don't think about it that way. I just think I'd like to talk to this person.
But can I just, it's your show, but
sure.
Isn't that kind of
going to interview historians of the conflict or historians in general, why would you get somebody like Ian Carroll or...
Yeah, but Ian Carroll, I didn't bring him on for that purpose. I brought him on because I want to find out, like, how does one get involved in the whole conspiracy theory business? Because
you don't even treat it as conspiracy theories, though, right? Like...
That's kind of my view. I think that it's weird, like genuinely weird.
Yeah.
Low-key fucked up for Joe Rogan to still be saying this.
Yeah.
With like the biggest platform in the world. You are bigger than CNN, dude. Like you're bigger than MSNBC and CNN put together. You have to realize that. And people don't just come on to listen to you like shoot the shit with your bros. Like people like listen to you to actually get information about the world that they then spread to their peer groups, and then that becomes the truth. You know what I mean? And we see this happen all the time with memes that just spread online like wildfire. And it's like, where did it come from? Oh, it came from Rogan, so often.
I'll call back to like our takedown episode of Rogan, which probably still our highest viewed episode of all time. Where I have always, not always, but I mean maybe in the last 5 years have really taken umbrage with exactly this point where Rogan will often, it started as people referencing his fame, and it would make him kind of brutally uncomfortable, where someone would be like, oh, we're on the biggest podcast in the world, and you just kind of see him squirm, and he would usually say something kind of deflective, like, well, this is just me doing my thing. And I think that in a certain sense, maybe for a time, you can give someone like Rogan the latitude to need to keep himself isolated from influence in a certain sense, because he's right. The podcast that he's built is because he's being himself and he's doing what he wants to do, and that's why people like him. I think that you cross a threshold at some point, and I don't think it's a number of follows or likes or influence. It's something a little murkier and more nebulous than that, that I think a person should be keeping track of on their own, where you say to yourself, okay, I have such an outsized influence for an individual that I now have a greater responsibility to something. Veracity, fairness, balancedness, perspective, whatever. I mean, once you have a platform that big, to be in this kind of infantile state of like, I can't, I can't hear that. No, I'm not. I don't know what's going on. I'm just talking to people. And it's just like, grow up, buddy. You know what I mean? Like you
People
have,
that need to be shamed or something like that, because it's just like hello, knock knock, like you fucking moron, like
it's
you
pathetic.
are bigger than all the media platforms, like you are state media right now. If you're just pumping out propaganda for your dude buddy Trump, like
Right.
you are state media.
Right.
He needs to be
Right.
shamed out of that view, I think, or
I
something,
think so too.
or just, I mean, at one level, I do remember during COVID, he said he was no longer going to talk to any serious people, and he was just gonna have on like goofballs. Man, his show got so boring after that. Like I gotta say, like Joe Rogan experience just became so painfully boring when he stopped doing meaningful. So he's got it. It's okay to do like meaningful content, but like Douglas Murray said, just like have on true experts on both sides. And then if you're going to et cetera, et cetera. It's
Well,
been said a million times. It's
I don't
just
know
so
if
fucking obvious. It's like boring,
I don't know if you've noticed there's been a tonal shift with Rogan over the last probably 6 months, where he does actually, in my humble esteem, appear to be migrating back to a previous version of himself where
I think so. This episode with Douglas Murray is evidence of that, actually, because like I think 6 months ago he would not have had Douglas Murray on to be lectured by him. Like he had
no,
to know Douglas, who like love him or hate him. It's so like rad that he's like one of the few characters out there who will just like have his position, and then
yeah,
it doesn't matter. Like there's zero audience capture. He will
yeah,
lecture anybody,
yeah,
very much like Christopher Hitchens style.
yeah,
If you just maybe you're totally on his team, but if you are wrong about something, he's gonna lecture the fuck out of you. Like I respect that. And so Rogan had to know he's having on this guy who's just gonna lecture him for 3 hours, and he did it, and that's great. So to your point, I do think that Rogan has kind of shifted back, and it's man, I like it could be very interesting. I think for the culture, especially in this moment when it's just gross. All the right wingers who just like are so far up Trump's ass. And Rogan, I think, is probably chill enough of a dude and like at heart a Californian, like hippie at some level, that he probably thinks that's gross. He can't do the
yeah,
state media thing forever, I think.
yeah.
And that's a good thing. I don't know.
I
Like
think
Rogan
I,
is so likable. He's so I don't know.
the
I hope the best for him and his show. I really do.
the iconic Rogan vibe was always that he had a bit of a hot take on everything and was kind of in a, in an, he was he was almost always willing to go to bat for the perspective that he saw as the correct perspective, regardless of who he was talking to. He became a little sycophantic over the last 5 years, but then, I've heard him say some things recently where I'm like, all right, okay, I hear you coming back, brother. He was like, yeah, it's pretty scary when you've got people being sent to a dungeon in El Salvador, and that's him saying that, right? I mean, that's not Soy Boys, Pete and Dev saying that. I mean, that's Rogan saying that. And he'll push back against things here and there. And I'd love to see him come back as like the media moderator that he was for this podcast, where he kind of jumped in when it felt like there was like unfair kind of semantic bullshit happening, or, he was kind of like, all right, you guys can duke it out, but no eye pokes. You know what I mean? Like, he like jump in when somebody got kicked in the nuts and be like, all right, time out. Let's make a joke. Let's bring it back to center. Like, let's not be too sanctimonious here. And like, I think that's a great role for him. And
Totally.
I listened to the whole Dave Smith podcast too. I thought it was pretty reasonable, pretty good. Just
Do you know
his
what was weird, Devin?
ah,
Actually, and I had this thought multiple times listening to the episode with Dave Smith and Douglas Murray. 3 hours. It was the least Rogan has
has ever
maybe
talked.
ever
Has ever
talked.
I mean,
He
he
talked for
made
maybe 10 minutes in the whole 3-hour thing. It was
seriously,
incredible. And
which
actually,
I
this
was
is
just like, this is amazing.
me
This is
too. Like, one of the
fantastic.
reasons why I actually stopped, like, basically completely stopped listening to Rogan is you turn it on and it would just be him talking. And it's like, yeah, he's a chill dude, but like, I don't need to listen to this guy talk for hours
Yeah.
every week. I just don't. I'm over it.
Well,
So, that was refreshing.
The OG Rogan appeal was that he was brutally present with
Yes.
every guest, and he just
Yeah.
always asked the best question next. I
Yeah.
remember like the early Huberman episodes, the early episodes where he's talking with people that are like health influencers or people who neuroscientists, people with information that he does not have. He's just right there with it, kind of keeping
Yeah.
pace with it. He's a smart guy and he's asking the best question next. And I'm like, yeah, let's get back to that. Nobody cares about your thoughts on most stuff, dude. You're
Yeah.
just a fucking guy, but you're a great interviewer when
Yes.
you're doing it well,
Okay, so I want to pivot to a next topic, and this is going to be more actually like in our wheelhouse of tech centricness.
Beautiful.
So this happened this week.
Oh
Where?
man, boy, did it.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard about this actually since I was like a teenager, I swear.
Yep.
I mean, obviously like Jurassic Park, we're going to start bringing back extinct animals. This has been, but every teenage boy has been waiting for this effectively. And apparently to some level, it just happened this year where the dire wolf has been extinct for 10,000 years and arguably has been brought back. This is one I don't want to talk about today, is just like highlight the fact that a lot of people are critical of this as happening. But at the same time, the startup that did this, they have their reasons why they think this is completely legitimate, and they say that the woolly mammoth is next. And whether or not this is exactly fully legitimate or not, like clearly this is a thing that's happening, right? And it's going to just continue to keep happening. And so we need to start, I think, reflecting culturally about what this means, where we should go with it. And I don't know if there are any red lines we shouldn't cross, so we don't start Jurassic Park and unleash Tyrannosaurus Rexes across the planet. So yeah, give me your hot takes so far on this topic, if you have any, and then I want to jump into the critiques a little bit.
I do. I think that my first kind of practical application that I could think of for something like this is repopulating, species that have been depopulated or are endangered or have gone extinct.
We're losing species every day, right? Isn't there's some number about this? Like every day we're losing 6 species or something like this.
Right. And I think that that all makes sense to me until you think about how stupid humans are with regard to ecology. Where I'm like, I just don't.
Hold on. So apparently, I just Googled this, and scientists estimate that up to 150 species may disappear every day.
Like bugs?
every day. I guess probably I guess probably bugs are probably small things, right? Well, okay, well that's
One
interesting. That would be
one would hope. I just think that like you know,
150. How many are there? Jesus, like
the whole Jurassic Park like life finds a way thing. I don't know that that is the point that I would love to hammer on, but the point of as soon as you're meddling with complex systems, we just don't have the modeling capability still.
mm,
You know, we still don't have the modeling capability to fully model complex systems, and like the body is an amazing example of how limited our ability is to model complex systems. Like, yeah, as like a fun thing, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think whatever, we have mini pigs and like all kinds of weird little designer animals, and like I mean how yeah,
well, I mean, what's interesting about right again this moment in time. I always talk about how this moment in time is so fascinating. Quantum computers in the next
yeah,
5 or 10 years are supposed to be able to do this,
yes,
actually model
yes,
nature itself
yes,
and
yes,
all of
yes,
human biology, and then like nature and human biology put together. Like it's going to be
yeah.
nuts when we're able to do that. So, I
This
mean,
was
that modeling that we do not have right now at all, and like our supercomputers never could do, quantum computers apparently could. So that is actually coming along.
that was kind of going to be my bow on the point, which is that this power is ill fated to human hands. I think that once we have
Mm-hmm.
the complex modeling capability to use something to repopulate a system or to achieve a greater degree of ecological balance or whatever, we just don't have that yet. And I think that anything other than like a fetishy fun you know, designer pet application for this would be probably patently foolish at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's cool. I think it's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Yeah,
I want a
me too.
fucking Pikachu. I want a fucking Pikachu, Peter.
I am
I'd
broadly
fucking
for
die
this.
for a Pikachu, man.
Yeah, until I read a really compelling argument for why just like we shouldn't be doing this, I think we should. I mean, gain of function research for viruses, maybe not, like actually no. But
Right.
yeah, I'm kind of all about this. I did spend a little bit of time looking into
What's the pushback?
okay, well, there's one comment that I found actually on Facebook. When you're Googling this, it's this big Facebook rant comes up, and uh I I don't know who the guy was. It's I should maybe look up Michael Petty or something like that. Mike R. Petty. I'm not too sure, but let me read just one line from his commentary. He wrote, "The underlying reason, in my opinion, that everyone is buzzing about the so-called dire wolf, actually just a gray wolf with a few tweaks, not a dire wolf, is that it lets us off the hook for the justified guilt we feel and try to ignore about destroying the planet." That's
Yeah.
not a bad point. I mean, one, he just has an aside there about it's a gray wolf with tweaks. It's not a dire wolf, which maybe at some level that's splitting hairs. And probably you'd want to talk to a geneticist about when it becomes a different species versus it's just like a couple of code changes or whatever in
Sure.
a existing wolf. I think that that's a fascinating topic that I would want to look more into. But that's what's being said online as a critique. But also just like, yeah, maybe people feel so fundamentally good about this as a knee-jerk thing to let us off the hook again about the guilt that we feel about 150 species every day dying, apparently, if my Google search there, if that's accurate. So I think that that's a good point. That's a valid point.
I think that's a valid. I mean, 'cause that was where my mind kind of migrated to first. You know, naturally as any kind of practical application for the technology. I think, yeah. Uh, I don't know,
Hmm.
man. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. I think that you're not going to stop. The thing that I've realized as I've situated myself as a futuristic human and trying to just get comfortable with it is that you're not going to stop people from just psychotically pushing towards the next thing. I mean, it's like there's people that are
Yeah, yeah.
they're
That's what we're
absolutely
here for, Devin. This is what our cultural
dude.
commentary is here for because people are going to keep getting crazy. So we have
They're
to.
so fixated. People will get so fixated on an issue like creating an AI that is fully conscious, or and it's like you talk to some of these people and they just don't, they're not like internalizing any of the moral dynamics, any of the philosophical. They just want they just want this breakthrough for themselves or for whatever their kind of like pet issue is, and it's like, you're not going to stop people from doing stuff like this. But let me tell you what you can do is you can, and I don't know why this is just so obvious to me, where it's like you can legislate the corporatocracy and prevent these things from happening at scale. Like, that's what you can do. Like, the ecological nightmare that we live in is not caused by individual choices. It's caused by like the corporatocracy that runs this country and runs the world. And there is a whole lever of power to exert against this corporate superstructure that is like overshadowing all of human existence right now, and it's called the law. And we happen to have a democracy where we can change the law. And I have no idea why we are not focused as a society in the lawfare that people are engaged in against one another. Like, we have to have a collectivist lawfare mentality against the corporatocracy, man. Like, that is what the ecological destruction is coming from. It's no individual person is destroying the planet, man.
Well, it's really interesting that this particular dire wolf thing came from just a startup. I haven't looked into who they are, but also, like, you know, the biohacking community in the Bay Area is doing a lot of this stuff. One of the biohacker dudes who was featured in the Netflix documentary about biohackers, he is turning dogs making dogs glow in the dark, you know, stuff like that. And like, just a total normal dude with just like a little like biohacking kit sort of a thing, and some imagination. And so, yeah, it's going to be weird how, like, in the past, giant corporations and mega gazillionaires were the ones directly impacting planet, but maybe not anymore. I mean, now it might be small startups and individuals who are taking God's power in their hands to literally create new species or whatever. You know, it's a weird time.
I mean, yeah, that brings up such a fascinating point that like the next pandemic could be just a guy cooking, you know, just a guy cooking up his fucking crazy ass idea in his fully equipped, chemistry biology lab. You know, we did the profile on that lab in San Francisco, and like, you know, it was in some degrees kind of ramshackle. You know, it was a beautiful building. The machines were donated, and you know, it's like stuff's being stored in like mini fridges and stuff. I mean, it's all legitimate, but it's like it's all consumer grade stuff. You know, it was like very few of the tools that we were shown in that space were inaccessible to the average consumer, which is pretty wild, man. Pretty wild.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Sam Harris had a guy on his podcast a couple of years ago during the pandemic about saying how right now there's a couple of high-tech university labs that are able to create like synthesized viruses. A couple of years from now, that's going to be every university in the world. A couple of years later, it's going to be every high school. I mean, like this technology, it's becoming more and more available as it becomes more and more powerful. So,
and we have a gerontocracy where these fucking where these ancient politicians grew up like in Marie Curie's time. Like, remember when the structure of DNA was discovered? And I'm like, this is why we need young people in politics, dude. It's like, we got to get in front of this shit. We have to get in front of this shit before it becomes an emergency. Like, this is all legislatable shit, man. I think.
Yeah, I just noticed there was a comment by Dane Fitzgerald, friend of the pod, and he had actually a very fascinating comment. I've been thinking about this as we've been talking about this a little bit. Back to the Joe Rogan, Douglas Murray situation. Dane commented, "The upside of being chill and ignorant is that you're inadvertently open-minded enough to have people around who will criticize you. Murray wouldn't platform a Rogan or a Smith." It's kind of an interesting perspective. And that is kind of why I do think that there fundamentally is value to the Joe Rogans of the world, because they present a forum where legit dialogue can take place. And maybe someone like Douglas Murray, I mean, he operates just like in the world of ideas at a very fundamental level. So I think that he would poke his head around people who have interesting ideas and then like suss out whether or not they're legitimate or not. I mean, like he's very much on the wavelength with Sam Harris, and Sam Harris does every now and then have kind of like definitely fringy type people on. He had people on who were talking about like why the lab leak theory is probably the best theory way early, like early when that was like crazy fringe.
Heresy. Yeah.
So but yeah, that's a fascinating comment. I think that I really like that. I need to wrap up in just a couple of minutes here. I just noticed, so I'm gonna have to balance. But any last thoughts, comments, or
yeah, shout out to friend of the pod. I think this is like where the friction is that it's really hard to say that you can't do a bunch of research and know something, right? It's also really frustrating and annoying when the expert class has an elitist affect, where it was clearly like Douglas Murray's his whole flex for the kind of most of that podcast was being dismissive.
Yes.
And not debating on merits of the argument, but debating on merits of the person. And I think that my final thought is that we're wading into a much murkier, much and in certain ways more nuanced, and in certain ways less nuanced, but in all ways less clear informational ecosystem. And it's really hard to be an elitist about anything anymore, because everybody has access to the information that you have, other than his really extremely salient point of, have you been there? I think that is something that we can create a divisive barrier between people who know something about a subject and people who have experienced what they're talking about. That should be part of the hierarchy of expertism. Is if you're going to talk about an exotic country that is far away from where you live, you should have to go there to have anything meaningful to say about it whatsoever. You have to have eyes on the ground to get perspective, to humanize your perspective. It's really easy to rabbit hole yourself into any different informational silo and come out believing exactly what you wanted to believe in the first place, or what that person wanted you to believe. And as soon as you put your feet on the ground in a different place, you immediately have a widened perspective on whatever it is you're talking about.
I see that a little bit both ways, in that, like, I think that you can talk about stuff at some level just by taking in news sources. If you're taking in the opinions of people who are on the ground, that it's not like that's irrelevant. But at the same time, like, I am so reminded of the conversations that you used to have with people in Montana who know everything under the sun about San Francisco because they hear about it because of Fox News.
Yeah.
And that's Dave Smith. Like, Dave Smith is those guys in Montana talking about everything they know about San Francisco and how it's a failed state, et cetera, or failed city, et cetera, because they heard it on Fox News. Like, that's what Dave Smith does. He hears it on a network that is friendly to his ears, and then he regurgitates it to the world, and it informs his opinion. Whereas, like, all you gotta do is, like, dude, go to San Francisco. Like, sure, Tenderloin sucks, but like, go to Noe Valley or something. I'm sure these people don't know Noe Valley exists, but like, walk around Noe Valley at midnight. You will see no homeless people. It's very lovely. The flowers smell great in January. It's paradise on earth, right?
Yeah.
So yes, okay. I do think it's important to go to places in the whole thing, but
if it's gonna be your pet issue,
if it's your pet, exactly, yeah,
your pet issue, then do yourself the respect and service of expertising yourself. Like, you can be a little elitist when you've gone to school for something, been there, been like an emic view on the situation embedded, you've seen the things that you're talking about. That does actually lend you a higher level of credibility. But you should, but maybe, just maybe, don't be so fucking smug about it. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, Douglas Murray isn't, man. he just is not very likable to me. Even though I don't always agree with him, but I broadly agree with like most of like what he does, where at least I enjoy the fact that he is like heterodox in a productive way, not in an annoying way. But man, his affect is too smarmy. It's too tisk. And people love that, you know what I mean? But then it's like people who should hear his message are mega turned off by it. And I think he could take just a couple of classes about how to be less smug or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, he could pull in more, because he shouldn't just be talking to people who already agree with him. He should be talking to people, pulling in audiences who find him annoying, you know? But yeah, I don't
Completely agree.
I personally find Dave Smith's intonation to be annoying. The way he just like says certain words. I don't even know. I can't even like do it or like his thing, but like he will end certain words with a certain like he'll say like rather than like just like how it, I don't, do you have any idea what I'm talking about? But there's something about how he speaks too that just like turns me off, which is hilarious. But,
the thing that bothers me about him is his like volume creep, where he'll be like, and Benjamin Netanyahu and the Lahoud in 1955. You know, you're just like, yeah, all right.
This is okay. So Dave Smith and Douglas Murray, just come on here and listen to our commentary of you, because I think that we've given you both good tips. Good tips for both of you.
We will have you on the pod, Dave, Douglas. All you have to do is ask. We'll have you on.
we will welcome all. All
That's
perspectives.
Right. We're platforming. Literally,
we will platform all. Anyone. All right, man. I gotta bounce.
All right,
so,
brother.
Talk soon.
All right, man. Later.